So welcome to my YouTube channel. That's what we call the good life. Today I'm going to be talking about compost, black gold for all you gardeners out there. So if you've not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my allotment, my home garden and also my home kitchen. Now it's December in Kent at the moment, and it's, as you can tell, very cold, but there's one job that I like to keep on top of even in the cold weather, and that's my composting. I've got various composting methods because I've obviously got a home garden and I've got an allotment, so I have a lot of things that I want to compost. So I'm going to go through the different options that I've got that you could have, and also the way that you compost to get really efficient composting. So first of all, I'm going to explain the different composting methods that you could use. Now this one is actually a recent addition. It's called a Subpod. It's a very efficient way of composting your scraps from the kitchen, potato peelings, carrot peelings, bits from the garden, weeds and all that sort of thing. As you open it up, it's very frosty, so a bit difficult to open. I wasn't able to open my chicken hatch this morning to see if I've got any eggs because it's so cold. Because it's sunk into the ground, it stays a lot warmer, so it's incredibly efficient, the Subpod. And you have these little mats that you put over it. I've only recently just put some bits in there and given it a good turn over. But if you've got a home garden, this is absolutely perfect, and I'm really enjoying it. The stuff is composting down really quickly, and you get like an aerator that you turn it over with to keep it all mixed up and to get the air around it to help it compost. So I will put a link if you want to get a Subpod, because we do have a link where you can get one, and also a discount code if you wanted to take advantage of that. And so that's a really efficient way of creating compost. Like I said, I'm going to go through what you put in your composter and how to make it compost more efficiently later. So that's the Subpod. So for a small home garden, that's absolutely perfect. And we're quite a big family of 3 that eat a lot of vegetables, so a lot goes in there. So that's really good. The other item I've got over here is a Wormery. I've had this quite a few years. This does make compost as well, but it also makes liquid fertiliser as well, which was the main reason why we got it. It produces a general multi-purpose liquid fertiliser, which is really incredibly useful for all sorts of things in the garden when they need a feed. And of course it's free as well, which is absolutely awesome. And the way this works is you've got all these different trays, and you start off putting your stuff that you want to compost at the top, and then as it gradually starts to compost down, you move the trays down, so the bottom one will be the most composted, which eventually, once it's completely broken down, we'll then use it as compost. So that one will become empty, and that empty one will then become the top one, and it will all gradually move down so that it all gradually composts down. Sometimes you find when you open it up, some bits haven't broken up as much, so you can take those up and move them, keep them further up and move them, so you have to move it around a little bit just to make it as efficient as you possibly can. So that's something that we love having. So now I'm going to move up to the allotment and move on to the big guns, and I'm going to tell you how and what you actually put in it to effectively compost. So we're now up the allotment, and we're going to start sorting out my composters. As you can see, this one's very full indeed. We've put lots of bits in there. The way the system works is we've got like a 3-bed system, even though it looks a little bit heap obviously. That's 1, 2, 3 beds. So you initially put all your clippings, your weeds, your bits off your vegetables that you're not going to eat in there, and as you put that in there, you layer it up with either some shredded paper, which is what we've got, or you could put cardboard in there. But you'd only do that if it was quite wet, because obviously you need to put a little bit of carbon back. And then what we're now going to do is we're going to move the beds down. So as we move down to this one, this was what was originally in there that was turned over into there, and that's been rotting down a little bit more. And then once it's sat in there for more, you turn it again and it goes in there. Now what we've got here, we could actually put on the garden if we wanted to. Today we're not going to, because we don't need it. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn that into there. We probably will put a little bit of manure in with it as well, because this is a little bit dry. So we'll turn that over. That will then obviously soften it up and help it compost down more. We'll probably put a little bit of manure in with it, and then we'll remove that one into there. So we'll actually show you the process as we're doing it. So one essential part of composting is definitely really good animal manure. We're really lucky, we have it delivered here from local stables. So all the hardest bit I have to do is fill the wheelbarrow up and then wheel it back to the allotment, which is what I'm about to do. So, you don't need gym membership when you've got an allotment, is all I'm saying. So we've moved all that was in there onto that one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some of this manure onto that. So it's basically a layering up process, mixing up the stuff that you get from your garden with some animal manure, and obviously we have the shredded paper, which we're not going to put on there because it's dry enough, but we will put some shredded paper in with that if we think it needs it. And we could also mix some animal manure in with that while we're doing it as well. So we've just taken the last little bit out of here and put it into there. And although it doesn't look very well rotted down, if you subscribe to my channel, you'll see the process, and that will rot down just like the other stuff had rotted down, right down to the bottom. You know, when we was lifting it over, you could see a bit of heat coming off of it. You know, so you can see that it's composting down. Like if you look at this manure here, you can see this is all composting because of the heat coming out of it. That's it doing what it naturally needs to do. So I'm going to put a little bit of this. I've already put some in there, but I'm just going to give it a little bit more. When you're making compost, it's not an exact process, but it is a mixture of, you know, carbon, greenery and animal manure. If you don't have a really good supply like we have that's already delivered, most stables will, you know, if you contact your local stables, they have, guess what, quite a surplus of it, and they'll quite often just let you have some for free. But often where we live, in and around the lanes, people do have horses and they leave bags of it out with signs on it. And I think once you start looking for it, it's a really easy thing to get free. Obviously it's a waste product and it's going to do your garden an awful lot of good. So that's a little bit on there. You don't have to pat it down or mix around with it, it will just break down, which is absolutely fantastic. That's what it's all about. And now for the job of moving this one over. So obviously when we start moving that down, although this looks like it's not broken down at all, as we go down and we move it over, what's underneath will be quite well composted down. So that's really amazing. And as I move some of this over, I will put a little bit more of the manure in as well. So I've just started turning it over. Now I know that I haven't layered any manure or paper in that top bit because it's only been on there a few weeks. The stuff further down I have, so I'm going to put some of the paper on. And again, this is just household shredded paper. You could use bits of cardboard. Again, it's a good way of composting down something that's a waste product. So I'm not going to put it all on, but a nice layer of it's on. You know, when I turn it over, that will then go over and it'll be a nice even amount of carbon, you know, stuff from the garden, and also the animal manure. So it is quite a tiring process. I do have my cameraman, my husband, helping me with this, I'm not going to lie. If we kept on top of it a little bit more often, then it probably wouldn't be such a struggle. But hey ho, we all have busy lives, don't we? But we'll get this done this morning. So that'll be a job that will be really good, because not only is it good for the environment, it's also good for my garden to be getting all this amazing fresh homemade compost, which we do regularly sprinkle on our garden. So it's a fantastic thing to be doing. So we've finished. Both cameraman and myself are thoroughly knackered. So everything has been moved over. We couldn't move all this over for 2 reasons. One reason is we often find slow worms in there, or there could be hedgehogs in there, so we don't want to dig down too deep. And if you are doing your composters at this time of year, it is worth bearing that in mind. And also we were running out of room and it was a little bit dry, if I'm honest, so we decided to take as much over to there as we could and put a little bit more manure on that. Had we have had some fresh water, at this time of year our taps are turned off on the allotment and the little butts of water that we've got were frozen over this morning, but had we not have done that, we would have put a little bit of water over it because it was a little bit too dry. But the manure will do a good job, and as all the leaves have fallen off the trees now, when it rains it will all go straight onto it as well, which obviously will help as well. We will obviously move these over more in the spring, because by that time that would have fully rotted down, that would have rotted down a bit more, so we'll take out of there what we want to use, we'll move that into there and then that into there, and then we'll start again using that. So I hope you've enjoyed watching my video on how to compost, and if you're not composting already, hopefully you will start to do it. If you've got any composting tips or you're doing any composting at the moment, please do let us know, and as always please give us a like and tell us what you liked most.